Hey everybody, welcome back. This episode is going to be a little bit different in that I'm going to tell you a story and then maybe play a song. So the first story that I want to tell you is that I'm actually feeling pretty great. You know, for the first time, I've been able to communicate with many people, even to the point of leaving the conversation on someone else's plate in some cases. In some cases, we all have quite full plates, and it's difficult to see someone struggling to work through their plate if we know we can help. Now, the thing about being able to help one another out is it does take a level of self-involvement. So this type of message that you're listening to right now is for self-starters. This isn't for people who don't want to change. And for most of us, we talk a lot about wanting a change, but we never really put in any of the work to make that change. And because of that, we stay tense and frustrated and upset all the time. Like right now, as I started this message out, there was a tension, there was a passion. And some people may misunderstand short, condensed versions of a message because they're unable to currently listen for long enough to hear a story. So in this particular case, I'm telling a story. We're coming up on the 2022 holiday season, and today there are parts of the East Coast that are buried in snow. That's almost unheard of in terms of the amounts that have fallen. And this is just after a period of one evening, one night. And so if you can imagine, some of these events are going to continue throughout the weekend, these weather systems that we're experiencing. And if you can imagine, then you can possibly imagine a time not long ago when we were right here. Time not long ago, we all were right here, enjoying the show. Time has a way showing who's boss. Each moment of gain, a moment of loss. How was your day? Me, I'm having a blast. All of these days seem to go way too fast. And all of the nights, where did they go? we know. Don't hold your tongue, and I don't hold mine, but all of my words, I'm still feeling fine. So on with the show. Got this guitar, I come as I am. Some say that's quite far. I play this guitar for my loved ones and those I don't know. I wonder if I play for you now, would you stay or go? You don't really strike me as angry, maybe just hurt. You don't really take time to thank me. Enjoy your dessert. So that song is the opener to the set list that I've put together of some very complex songs that talk about feeling terrible, but share it in a way that's not so terrible. Sure, it might be stressful to feel a little bit of sorrow, but who in this room has not experienced any sorrow? I mean, I've experienced sorrow. I'm assuming that you and or somebody you know who's close to you probably has experienced sorrow. For most people, being left alone in that sorrow is such a daunting element that we shy away from even the honest opportunities to hang out with one another in places that are isolated, because we don't want to think those isolated thoughts. We only want to resonate with positivity. If you're on this channel, first of all, let me remind you, please click on thumbs up, please subscribe, please share this video. We're coming up on a holiday season time frame that is very difficult for many people, for many different reasons. External, internal, all of the above. And what we really need to do during these holiday seasons probably includes talking about these topics. And for some reason, anytime I bring up this topic about talking about these situations that we are all aware need to be addressed, people get nervous. And that's understandable. I'm nervous performing these songs for you. But let me tell you a story that might help put things at ease for a moment. I remember how beautiful, particularly on my father's side of the family, all of the singers are. The whole family would always celebrate milestones by singing with one another. The only thing is that we always continued to sing the same songs. We never really learned any new songs, and that's fine. In the meantime, there are things that we need to change our tune about, and so for that reason, every so often, I try to bring forward a conversation with our fathers, and I am met with some of the most interesting reactions. Try to tell you how I feel, and your response to me is unreal. And do you hear me anyway? The things you think are alright, I'm sure they help you sleep well at night. But when you wake, was it a dream? We're at a crossroad once again, between the enemy and our friend. Which way we'll go, time will tell. You say my words you can't understand. You move away just like you had planned. But can you stop to see the wake? I see the wreckage through the waves, from the way each one of us behaves. Throw out a line to save a life. It seems we've been here once before, and we're still miles and miles from the shore. And can you hear me anyway? So, I'm a product of the 80s. I was born in 1976, and rock and roll is what really attracted me. Out of all the things I ever experienced in life, music, especially music that's passionate like that, absolutely drew me to it. And so I grew up listening to a lot of the stuff that was on our local rock station. By the way, I am going to probably attempt my first 10K in a marathon scenario in the San Antonio's Rock and Roll Marathon that's coming up this December. And I've got just a short remaining amount of time to train, but I'm feeling really good. So if you only read the headline that said, "I feel terrible," then you might want to know that I'm doing some things that are making me feel more capable. In this particular era, when all of us have been inundated with things that induce anxiety, even that song I played for you might have induced some type of anxiety, unless you were on the side of that person where you really felt the energy. And you were like, "My God, that song is awesome." There were bands that played, well, there was this one song in particular that was related to a war story being told, and that song was so powerful. And it was written by some of the people who I thought were the most amazing performers, and they are. And those performers, I was in their fan club for quite some time, and I basically got kicked off of their social media fan club for sharing. Maybe it's because inevitably they were thinking that I would be selling something, for sharing passionate music. I got kicked off of a fan club of music for sharing music. So in my family, the reason I mentioned that they are beautiful singers is because it's a beautiful thing to have those gatherings, those regular gatherings where we get together to celebrate milestones, and you hear people sing and rejoice and proclaim their faith in things that may be in direct contrast with, I don't know, some of the imagery that some people are wearing, or some of the actions that some of us are carrying out. To share those types of messages, and to also showcase that in my world, in the world of a believer in peace, in my world, there are even those slip-ups where people say things and where gestures are made that might actually influence another person. So if you're listening to this story so far, you heard the first two songs and you're still listening finally, and you're able to go past the headlines of a story, and you're able to listen and not get offended. You're awake you're hyped up, you're energized. If you can recognize just how powerful these emotions are of music, then perhaps you can recognize that we might not be all that different. We might not be all that different from one another. Now, I have no idea what I'm doing up here except for, and when I say up here, I mean I'm up on up on a cooler. So I guess my seat is cooler than most. And I know that was pretty punny, and if you were listening and you were lighthearted, you're entertained. And if you're entertained, then maybe you're able to understand the words that I'm saying. If you're able to understand the words that I'm saying, maybe the person who is right next to you might be able to understand those words. Maybe the person who is in another room, in another county, in another geography altogether, might be able to understand these words as well. And so this is why I say sharing is caring. I'm not trying to push any kind of message on anybody. I'm just suggesting that anyone can click on the share link and bring someone a little bit of music this holiday season. That's really all there is to it. You know, we can share a lot of headlines about a lot of different things. We know a lot of people around the globe need prayers. Sometimes we need to be capable to pray for ourselves and those around us. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. That mentality is the first step to recognizing that maybe following the patterns that we always continue to follow might not be what we want to teach as values to one another. It's just a possibility. I'm not sure. What if I think the same things that you think? What if I drink the same things that you drink? What if we see the same things but you blink? And what if it's not a blink but a wink? Do you think you would see what I see if the person on fire was me? Do you think you'd help put out the fire? Or would you choose to be silent and liar? If all the people believe in the lie, well then what's there to speak? And did you blink or just wink with your eye and get yourself a good peek? Do you think you would see what I see if the person on fire was me? Do you think you'd help put out the fire? Would you choose to be silent and liar? What if I hear the same things that you hear? What if I fear the same things that you fear? What if we is a word that is not clear? What if what I don't have is what you cheer? There's 3 verses. The one that I repeated, I shouldn't have repeated. And so then I tried to recover by, I guess, ad-libbing. And then I completely forgot the final part of that lyric. And some of that has to do with, again, it's completely nerve-wracking recording these things with 100% openness, knowing that you're watching. So since you're watching, maybe just let's say that one's a work in process. Yeah, because I honestly, I really can't recall the words to that song. So I think you got the point of it. You know, it's a rock song, so you might not like that. Maybe that's even why we didn't complete that song. But this song I like a lot, and so I hope that it resonates with you. It's one of my favorite songs. It's one of the first ones that I wrote that had like it just felt like it was almost natural to play, and it had this feel to it. This feel where it was like I could see this playing in a church environment if we were only able to look past the tradition of what we saw as spiritually appealing. And at this point, I think there is something that needs to be awakened in many of us spiritually in order for us to pay attention at all. And that's sometimes the message of the story of life, isn't it? I met with the devil, he gave me his So if that's not rock and roll, I don't know what is. And I'm just going to go ahead and admit to you right now, today, that rock and roll is not dead. Rock and roll is forever. There's no stopping it. That's just the way it is. You know, music is music, and we either resonate with what's positive or we are repelled by what's positive. And so I'll tell you a story. This is the final story I want to tell about this holiday season for me. This holiday season for me is not unlike any other holiday season during which I have really a very limited number of people that I actually get to celebrate with. And it's because of these challenging beliefs that I happen to have about changing our tune and singing something new. And the way this story goes is that one of the last times I got to hang out with my father was basically during a road trip that I had invited him to, where we would stay for an extended period of time at a hot springs resort where I was working. That's what allowed me the opportunity to experience this. Was a place that was employing me during the COVID situations. So I appreciate that very much. If you're listening, you know who you are. And I was able to experience an extended stay with my father, and because of the things that I think about in terms of reducing our footprint, like for an example, this bamboo guitar is an example of trying to tell a message about sustainability. Just because of what I believed in, we ate a lot more fruits and vegetables, and it took 3 days before my dad slept for the first 2 days after this road trip. And it took about 3 days before he really kind of came around and was a little bit more at ease, you know. And I knew that the isolation from some of the things that we had gotten away from had helped out, you know, in terms of us being able to communicate, which is why I love to go to remote locations to talk with people. In the remote locations, when we're out under the stars at night, we don't really have time to pitch a fit and get upset at something that's maybe not as possibly sinister as that which might be in our proximity. Like not too long ago, I was at Big Bend National Park, and it was reported that there were 17 bears circling the campgrounds while I was there. And I remember a story out of one of the books of peace that talks about someone being in a den of lions during a time frame when, there was an account of how peaceful people were treated by the wild animals versus how people of war were treated by the wild animals. And by people of war, I don't mean anything by that. That's not directed at a title. Because we all know that there are very seemingly non-militant aligned people. In other words, like there could be anybody, you know, athletes, runners, it could be computer people, it could be, there are a lot of violent people in segments that we may never have thought about. Just like in parishes, there are certain things that have happened among the ranks that are just quite challenging to think about. It's almost as if people try to go after their primary instinct and take advantage of situations. You know, like when you think about the Boy Scouts and the way the media portrayed it. My experience with the Boy Scouts was quite amazing. Camping was not my favorite thing back then because I was not able to do the things that I'm able to do now. And had I known that I would be seeing wildlife when I was going camping, I would have probably gone out of my way to stay in Scouts for the entirety of my life. And quite frequently, regularly, I've asked my parents to go camping with me, and they don't quite really want to do it. And I think there might be different stigmas associated with just the word camping. You know, there are so many ways we think about it. Think about Boy Scouts, think about cleanliness, we think about we think about the difficulties that we might have experienced in the past, but seldom do we think about the positive things that can come from positive energy. So to show that I'm not sidebarring and forgetting about the topic. So my dad and I are on this retreat, I guess we'll call it, while I was working, and we had a lot of time to talk. And it wasn't until about just after a weekend where suddenly there was a hostility, and the hostility was starting to impact my work. And the reason I was there was I was having to work, so I couldn't really split my attention two ways. And since I had basically made it through to my weekend, I ended up taking my dad back home. And while we were driving home, we were on the most desolate highway you can think of. There were no lights, there were no highway lights, there was no side streets. You know, we were literally in the middle of nowhere somewhere. And my dad started getting really angry, asking if we were going to pull over soon to stop at a hotel. Now, I asked him, I asked him, do you see anything around it? Why are you so agitated, And there must be something else that's on your mind. But he would never talk with me in anything except for anger. And we got to a point where our conversation was a little bit, let's call it passionate. And it was passionate for me, but for my father, he's an older person, and the anger and everything comes through a little bit differently because he's pretty much seldom countered in his own rank of family because what he has is mostly sisters. So if he gets into a loud spat with somebody, he's the man in the situation. And usually the way that this works in most segments of our society is our women tend to back down. And I say that as a generality, but remember, I'm just a 45-year-old guy who is just now starting to learn the joys of running and all that stuff and taking care of my health, and how I could always leverage different health, wealth-building techniques to satisfy a multitude of purposes. So while we're in the car, my dad's upset. He's just starting to, he gets to the point where I say, hey, well, we can just not talk about it. I can put something on the car's radio so we can hear something because I need to calm down. And he said, okay. And so basically I put on an anger management audiobook that I have, which helped me out immensely in the past when I was learning to reassure my own mind that I could say positive things, instead of the constant, I need to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this. Really, we don't have to do anything except consider the truth. And the truth is, however many minutes you've been watching this, I'm talking about bringing our communication circles together, and you've either considered sharing this and you've already shared it, or you're still just captivated thinking about what is it that the other person who I share this with might think. Well, to me, by that point in time when we continue to think about what other people think, we fail to come up with our own music, with our own songs. So the next song I want to play for you is called Whisper. This, to me, was the song that I was writing so that if I ever was permitted the opportunity to speak with my father, not at my father, not be yelled at by him, speak with my father, which will require some moderators in the group, then I would probably, inevitably, if I remembered the words to the song by then, I'd probably play this song that I'm about to try here. So hopefully I remember the songs. If I don't, the song's lyrics. If I don't, you'll just have to maybe fast forward to the next segment, whatever. But I hope I get it right. on the trails we share. A whisper through the stair. Where did we go today? And did we have the same? Maybe we all can choose. Maybe no one would lose. So I agree, I agree that these songs can make me reconnect with a lot of emotion. How I use that emotion when I feel it is up to me, and if I can't learn to power myself through negative situations, like for an example, running for an entire mile, it can seem extremely negative if you've never done it before. I know that I had been challenged by it. Today I ran a mile, and I actually ran probably about half of my 5K, which is 3.107 miles, and I did pretty good. What I did was slowed down the running portion just to kind of try and experiment. I've been all over the place. I've been able to run a mile at a pretty moderate pace. I've been able to walk for endless miles at about a 2 mile an hour pace. And in general, all I'm trying to do is kind of combine the endurance with the output of running, which is basically just having energy in one place. And if anyone were to describe some of these things to you that I'm experiencing, they might describe it as a joyous experience. I absolutely feel joyful, overjoyed that I've been able to run a mile, that I've been able to complete these 5K and even a 10K effort in under the time frame that would be required to, to qualify for a t-shirt for the event, for a said effort. If ever there were anything that would make me excited in the past, it would be getting a t-shirt, and being proud of what I did. And right now, I'm telling you some stories that are challenging, even though I'm overcoming a lot of these obstacles. I'm telling you some stories that are challenging. They're challenging because as we approach these regular holiday seasons, and as families are gathering without thinking twice about the ways that they can help reconstruct the families who are not able to gather, it just goes to show you that if you put a message out there, like vulnerably, you may not be heard at all. And you may not be heard because the other person was never looking to tend to caring for you at all, and it's because we don't recognize the levels that we can care for one another. So there's a lot of duality in the writings of my songs, but the duality is it's very punny, it's a dry humor. And so for the family that I know, the family with whom my father is still able to communicate, I hope that you're watching this message and that family goes beyond the scope of what we would call family if we look globally at what power we have to help one another. So if you're sharing this message, again, I totally appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I could not have shared this message with some people because of what happened. So to revisit the story that I was talking about, we're driving down the road. I put on an anger management audiobook. And I'm listening to these reaffirmations, nobody is going to tell me how I think today. I am in control of my thoughts. I am a happy, successful, wealthy, intelligent person, etc. and so forth. It's just positivity. And it might be going through some motions for some people, but for my dad, it was a whole other thing. And he got almost belligerent. And if you stuck with me through this story for a while, you know that was a concern to me, because again, I was in a whole other location and we were miles and miles from anywhere. And just to let you know why it was of concern, not very long after that, my father, while punching me and attempting to jump from my moving vehicle, tried to run across a highway to where the speed limit was 80 miles an hour, just to keep me from pursuing him. Ended up running into a convenience store, robbing it, and almost getting into a fist fight with a woman in the parking lot who had almost struck him because he errantly just darted out in front of their car. All of that happened, and this man was sitting next to me, and I was playing an audiobook, and the audiobook was basically positivity. It was just anger management. It was an anger management audiobook. And he got extremely upset. And so I ended up turning off the audiobook, and he tried to make a claim that I had played that just for him. But the truth is that A, this thing was already in queue on my mobile device, and B, I had to have purchased it and downloaded it in advance. And he doesn't necessarily know that I'm playing this in this manner. So, and I also could not tell him this, because anytime I tried to talk, he immediately just kept yelling. And I tried to persuade him to have a conversation like I would any other out of control toddler. Despite not having any children, I've had a great amount of interaction with families, with toddlers. And my own families have been pretty large. So there's been plenty of toddlers that have come through the system. And talking with a toddler is about the same as talking with a puppy dog, or even any other wildlife that may not understand you. I've recognized that depending on how we're talking with the animals is sometimes how the animals will respond to us, even if there's no language whatsoever. The same thing happens with people. So as we're playing music for one another, we are helping each other to release endorphins and to experience positivity, but only if that experience is pleasant. So in a lot of my songs, I can understand how there were some unpleasantries in my voice, and I still have a long way to go before I can actually actively sing, because again, I'm going through a situation right now that I'm telling you where I was driving down the road, my father got upset at this audiobook that I wanted to listen to, so we rode back mostly in silence until we had a big conflict over the keys that he had misplaced somewhere throughout getting out of the car and getting to his house. And then he was about to break the window out of his house. I persuaded him, please don't do that. We're going to find your keys. And finally we found his keys. And I was able to drop my father off, drive all the way back to where I came from the night before. And I continued my work. And I also let people know what was going on. And not too terribly long after that, my father threatened the neighbors with a tool, with a screwdriver. And then shortly after that, he was yelling outside his house with his shirt off, waving it around and yelling some crazy things. And then shortly after that again, I was put into a situation where I had to transport him to a hospital. And while I was driving him to the location, fresh from the sheriff's office, this grown man, while he was punching me in the arm, trying to jump out of my moving vehicle, immediately stopped doing anything that looked suspicious the moment that the officer was able to view him. And so once the officer was able to view him, after they finally had come around the corner of the car, they asked what was going on, and it was his story versus my story type thing. And even then, the officials would not help to transport this person who might have been under the influence of, let's call it, the opposite of the holiday spirit. he might have been under the influence of a darker force. In fact, he spoke in different voices when his sister and I were transporting him to the hospital. And his sister can either acknowledge it or not, but she has not reaffirmed that story among the group in the way that she should have. And so for that reason, it's just me who has not been really invited to the family gatherings. And so for that reason, I invited myself into the family gatherings by producing this video itself. And I want to sing a final song for this quick set list. It's called Thank You. Thanks for listening. Like to let you know how much it meant. Time goes by and I don't understand. All I want to do is hold your hand. Think of you and then I think again. Hope you'll always choose to be my friend. Here I go down my familiar path. I alone will stand to face the wrath. Like to thank you for the time we spent. Like to let you know how much it meant. Like to thank you for that time back then. Hope you'll always choose to be my friend. 'Cause that alone defines just who we are. There's no distance that can grow too far. Like to tell you just this one last time. For goodbye is just too hard to rhyme. I think that's a pretty solid set list, even only having played a fraction of what the songs were. Yeah, I mean, I would replay the one song that I didn't get the full lyrics to for you, or something else. But right now, I feel like that kind of said what it needed to say, and I know that we all have busy lives. What I'd like to do is to invite us to all give space to pray for those around us who are experiencing challenging situations. And as we do that, we recognize we would automatically treat ourselves that same way. And so there's no need to covet those prayers and limit them only to ourselves and to only leverage negative thoughts towards those people that we find challenging for some reason. Maybe we need to start pray for those who trespass against us and lead us not into temptation, you know. Maybe forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Maybe it's some simple rendition of maybe we need to think about the past or something like that, you know. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. And so anyway, until next time, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your subscriptions. This has really meant a lot. I appreciate that you're helping me to get the word out. And I appreciate that you helped me to experience the conversations that had previously been unsatisfied. So thanks again, and until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff. Oh yeah, here, catch.